Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss how Boris Johnson is yet again, presumably as a result of his lack of detail, putting forward two contradictory policies intended to help shore up support for the Union. In one policy, he wants to pretend that the UK is not actually a union of countries, and in the other he wants to suggest that all of the constituent parts of the UK are completely foreign to one another. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, in his ham-fisted attempts to duct tape the damage that he has done to the UK as a result of his deeply divisive rhetoric, Boris Johnson has attempted a few half-arsed measures. So last year, summer, if you may remember, he went on holiday to Scotland as if that was somehow going to see the draining away of support reverse. It was a nonsense anyway. If anything, it just reminded Scots why many would actually go through fire to get away from this abomination. He spent his holiday residing in a cottage, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. If I go on holiday somewhere, I prefer a cottage. You know, if the purpose of his stunt was just a holiday in Scotland, what on earth is the problem with doing that in a house? But he or his advisors, I don't know, felt that it should be a camping trip. Oh, it's no good just going to Scotland, Prime Minister. You've got to live in a tent. So he had his people set up a tent and a fire on someone's land without their permission as part of some deception. It's like, no, we need to do it in a tent. Oh, but I'm not actually keeping it in a tent. No, you don't have to. We'll do it in a house. We'll just set up a tent, take some photos. It'll be fine. Not realising that maybe there'll be other people in the area who would also take photos. You know, so Johnson never spent a single night in that tent. What was the point of it? Other than just to provide more documentary evidence that he's a liar. Also that he has no respect for anything or anyone, because the person whose land had a fire and a tent pot on it was none too impressed. Then they thought that stamping the Union flag on doses of vaccine given to Scots would do the trick. This had to be the dumbest of all. Apart from the fact I cannot actually conceive of the sort of mentality that could possibly be won over such a move. Could you imagine? Oh yeah, I want independence for Scotland. Oh, I'll talk to you about independence for Scotland later. I've just got to go and get my jab. Sit there. Oh, there's a Union flag on this vaccine I'm having. Oh, I don't want independence anymore. What? The thing is that who would see it? I've had one dose of the vaccine now. I don't know what the vial looks like where the dose was kept. I never saw it. I just sat down. Someone stuck a dart in my arm and then I buggered off. But those stunts were at least benign. You know, apart from, I suppose, the damage his henchmen caused with that fire. But considering the damage he is capable of, nothing really harmful ensued from these policies. But in his aggressive moves to kneecap separatists, he's also been seizing back power from devolved bodies. His thinking here is that if he controls more of the money spent in, say, Scotland than the UK, then the UK government can take more of the credit for the services that money buys. It's a little bit like, at the moment, you know, he doesn't like the fact that the Scottish government are saying, well, we funded this and we funded that. He won't say, well, no, we funded it. This was Westminster. But apart from the moral outrage, there are two practical problems with this. First of all, the reason for the increase in support for the breakup of the Union is essentially down to a disconnect between a highly elite and centralised Westminster government and the people of Scotland. If you want to reverse that, you have to have more engagement, more power devolved, not less. Frankly, there's a disconnect everywhere, but when a part of the UK has a ready-made alternative, as Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland have, then behaviour like this doesn't strengthen the Union, it weakens it. Secondly, let's face facts, Boris Johnson is not good with the nation's money. He's not really good with his own. The only reason he even manages is because other people buy his stuff for him. I still don't know how you manage to spend 27 grand on takeaways in a year. But anyway, never mind that. By involving Westminster more in Scottish spending, what is he actually doing? He's giving people a way to compare the value for money in Scottish government spending and that by Westminster government spending. Is he insane? I mean, he gets away with it in England because we don't have decent devolution anyway. You've got a few areas, yes, where we've got elected mayors who have spending powers, but throughout most of England, there's no real direct comparison across the country. But anyway, Johnson got rid of the advisors that had been messing up last year and he got some new guys in. And this appears to be what they're coming up with now. So 2 policies, which I'll lay out and then go through each. First, officials to be told not to refer to individual UK countries like Wales as separate countries. Secondly, our new replacement for Erasmus, the Turing scheme, to be used to get students to do exchanges between different UK countries. Now, these 2 ideas aren't just bonkers, they are contradictory. Telling officials not to refer to, say, Wales as its own country, it's a little bit like when he told them to stop using the word Brexit last year, as if that would make the whole thing go away. You know, when he thought he was going to get hammered for it this year. That's what, a little aside, gets me really annoyed. The fact that Boris Johnson now is quite happy to use the word Brexit, even have a Brexit minister again, is because he didn't get hammered for it in the way he thought he would. Sort it out, Labour. But anyway, it's also a nonsense. See, I've had to say a few times on this channel, at times, when people try and make up their own definitions for us, I understand this by this word. No, that's not how words work. You go to a dictionary. The purpose of language is to be clearly understood when communicating. It would solve a lot of misunderstandings in the world if we just had one universal language, for example. But we don't, we're not going to. But we should at least use words within a language in a way that they can be clearly understood by other speakers of that language. Case in point, I have spent virtually all my working life just outside of Yorkshire, but because a lot of my Yorkie language was often misunderstood, even though I was only 30 miles away from where I grew up, I essentially phased them out. And now I rarely use these things. To the point where even my partner didn't realise that I actually, do sometimes use these things. I used it as a bit of a joke a few times. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The word country has a clear definition. You just go to a dictionary, there it is. The Oxford English Dictionary has it as an area that has or used to have its own government and laws. Well, Wales has its own government and laws. Scotland has its own government and laws. So too do Northern Ireland. That's a bit of an odd one with Northern Ireland, but it has its own government. It doesn't have a parliament, but it has its own government and it has its own laws. Ironically, England is the one where we go, well, we have our own laws, but we don't have our own government. But the Oxford English Dictionary's got us covered because we used to. So that's fine. And I get that it is confusing. Honestly, I do get it's confusing. I often get people having a pop at me for referring to either Scotland or the UK as a country. No, Scotland's not a country. Yes, it is. Well, the UK is not a country. Yes, it is. Both are. How can you have one country inside another country? Welcome to the UK. We do things a little differently around here. So not content with trying to rewrite history, Boris Johnson is also trying to rewrite the English language. But a word means what a word means. If we make up our own definitions, all we do is make ourselves less clear in meaning. Which point, what's the point of language? But this policy is also aimed at pretending that the United Kingdom is not made of constituent countries. In which case, which kingdoms does he think he united? Makes no sense. Then there's his Turing idea, or rather that of his second wave of brainless advisors on the Union, presumably. So Johnson pulled us out of Erasmus. This wasn't a necessary part of Brexit, he just did it. To highlight how unnecessary it was, the Irish government have extended their support for the programme in Northern Ireland, so students there will still be able to access the scheme for exchanges between university students. Johnson decided to replace it with the Turing scheme, which to my mind it's offensive to name it after a man that he would have helped persecute when he was alive, but there you are. But Johnson claimed this scheme would widen exchanges amongst poorer kids. Erasmus is no good, you see, it doesn't help poorer kids. The Turing will help it. Which is hard to see how that will happen when the Erasmus scheme demonstrably helped people from poorer backgrounds and the government aren't funding the Turing scheme like the EU do Erasmus. So it's a bit like saying, of course, poor kids can use this programme, he's saying, as long as they can afford it, of course. Yeah, nice one. But now he's suggesting that the programme be used to exchange students between Northern Ireland, England, Wales and Scotland. You what? So we're going to use a programme whose stated intention is to facilitate exchanges between UK university students and foreign universities to exchange students inside the UK. Isn't that making it sound like England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland are all foreign to one another? So on the one hand, he wants civil servants to not refer to the separate countries of the UK as if pretending they don't exist will stop them existing. But on the other hand, he wants them to also consider them completely separate foreign entities for the purpose of exchanging students between them. I mean, the article in the Times that reported on all of this did also mention that Whitehall officials had been told to put the preservation of the Union at the heart of policy making. Now, in theory, that part at least sounds fine. Yes, okay, if we actually have the Union at the heart of all policy making, then that inevitably would help strengthen it. Only two small problems with saying that Whitehall officials need to put it at the heart of policy making. One, Whitehall officials don't make policy. Politicians make policy, his ministers make policy. The officials then have to work out how to make their increasingly deranged fantasies a reality, but they don't make policy. Second, even if what they mean is that officials should help shape the practical outcome of ministers' policies to put the Union uppermost in their thoughts, this is somewhat complicated by the fact they are being forced to implement policies that might almost be designed to fracture the Union. Another classic case of Boris Johnson demanding 5 impossible things before breakfast. If Johnson actually wants to preserve the Union, might I suggest that he starts implementing policies that increase the public's engagement with politics instead of playing one group of people off against another? Because that is the thing. When you adopt divisive rhetoric, divisive politics, you inevitably divide a population. The way he operates divides the UK, naturally. The only way to stop that is to stop using those techniques. And he also needs to start working in the national interest as well, instead of against it. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further. Please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.